One of the heaviest things we carry is not a physical object. It's not a suitcase or a load of bricks. It's something far more draining. It's the psychological burden of our own past mistakes. Guilt, shame, regret. These emotions, when left unchecked, can sit so deeply within us that we stop walking forward. We don't move, not because we can't, but because we're too weighed down to try. And the saddest part is we often do this without even realizing it. You see, mistakes are inevitable. Nobody, no teacher, no leader, no monk, has walked through life without stumbling. That's not a flaw in the system, it's a feature of growth. But the real damage doesn't come from the mistake itself. It comes from what we do with it, or rather, what we refuse to do with it. Most of us, instead of confronting our errors, choose to suppress them. We internalize them. We carry them around like invisible baggage, dragging them from one relationship to another, one opportunity to the next. And slowly those mistakes begin to whisper, "You're not worthy. You always mess up. This is who you are now." And so we begin to wear our mistakes like name tags. Instead of saying, "I failed at this," we say, "I am a failure." That's where the real tragedy begins. When you confuse what you did with who you are, you're no longer learning from the past, you're being haunted by it. This is how guilt evolves. And once that happens, it doesn't just affect how you see your past, it reshapes your future. You stop trying, you settle, you shrink, but let's pause and ask, what is guilt really? Guilt is like an emotional signal. It's your conscience tapping on your shoulder and saying, "Hey, that wasn't aligned with your values." It's not meant to destroy you, it's meant to direct you. It's like pain in the body. If your hand touches fire, the pain tells you to pull back. The pain itself isn't bad, ignoring it is. In the same way, guilt is useful when it becomes a guide. It's destructive only when we allow it to become our identity. So the real question is, are you using guilt as a mirror or are you using it as a mask? A mirror reflects something honestly, allowing you to change. A mask hides the truth and keeps you stuck. Far too many people are walking through life with emotional masks glued on, unable to connect with others, and even worse, unable to connect with themselves because they're ashamed of what lies underneath. Let me tell you something important. Carrying your mistakes doesn't make you more spiritual. It doesn't make you more humble. It just makes you more exhausted. And tired people rarely have the energy to build anything worthwhile. You can't carry your past and build your future at the same time. One has to go. Now, this doesn't mean you forget your mistakes. No, that would be naive. It means you reposition them. You don't carry them on your back like a burden. You place them beneath your feet like steps. You learn, you reflect, and then you climb. This is why forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, is one of the most powerful things you can ever practice. Not as an excuse, but as a bridge. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean saying it didn't matter. It means saying it mattered and I learned. It means declaring that your story is still being written and this chapter, no matter how painful, will not define the ending. Too many people live in emotional repetition, not because life is holding them back, but because they are holding. The moment you let guilt become your compass, you will always walk in circles. But when you use it as a map, something shifts. You begin to see that even your most painful experiences can become the foundation of your wisdom. Every mistake you've made contains a seed of growth, of clarity, of humility. But like any seed, it must be planted, it must be placed below you so you can rise above it. If you clutch it tightly to your chest, it dies with you. But if you let go, if you plant it, it grows, and so do you. So the next time you feel the weight of your past pressing against your shoulders, stop and ask yourself, am I using this to rise or am I letting it bury me? Because the truth is, your past is not a prison sentence, it's a teacher. And like any good teacher, it doesn't want to punish you, it wants to prepare you. Let your mistakes become your mentors. Let your pain push you to purpose. Don't carry what you're meant to climb, place it beneath you and rise. Because you were never meant to live under the weight of your past. You were meant to walk on top of it with strength, wisdom, and grace. One of the most liberating ideas you'll ever encounter is this: you are not your mistakes. And yet, so many people walk through life shackled to what they did wrong, not because the world is holding on to it, but because they are. They've blurred the line between action and identity. They've turned "I made a mistake" into "I am a mistake." And that tiny shift in language, it can quietly destroy a person's self-worth from the inside out. Let me ask you something. If you spill a glass of water, do you call yourself a spill? If you burn the toast, do you say, "I'm a fire hazard"? Of course not. But when it comes to our emotional failures, maybe we betrayed someone's trust, maybe we didn't live up to our own values, we start to internalize those moments. And over time, the memory of what we did starts to overwrite the truth of who we are. This confusion between action and identity is a psychological trap. It prevents growth. It convinces you that because you failed once, or maybe many times, you are somehow permanently defective. And here's the real danger. When you believe you're broken at the core, you stop trying to repair anything. Not just your past, but your future. It all begins to feel pointless. But the truth is, your essence as a person is deeper than any one decision you've made. Your value doesn't disappear just because you stumbled. In fact, I'd argue that your ability to Mazari after falling reveals more about your character than never falling at all. That's where maturity begins, when we learn to separate our failures from our identity and start focusing on the Cephia response, lar, instead of the mistake. And this brings us to an important shift, the difference between shame and responsibility. Shame says, "I am bad." Responsibility says, "I did something wrong and I want to make it right." One is paralyzing, the other is empowering. Shame pushes you into silence, into hiding. Responsibility pulls you into growth and redemption. So if we want to live with clarity and peace, we have to rewire how we see ourselves. We have to reclaim the power of yet. I haven't fixed it yet. I'm not perfect yet. I'm still learning. That one word adds hope to the narrative. It says your story isn't over. It reminds you that today's decision, right now, has more power than yesterday's regret. This is why identity must be built from the future, not the past. When you define yourself by what you've done, especially the worst of it, you lock yourself into a fixed mindset. But when you define yourself by what you're becoming lighted, you open the door to growth. You shift from punishment to purpose. And here's the beauty of it. Your identity is not found in the mistake, but in what you choose to do next. Do you apologize? Do you learn? Do you take the hit and still move forward with integrity? That's who you are. Not the misstep, but the movement that follows. Even in spiritual traditions, this distinction is honored. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that even the worst sinner, if he decides to walk the path of righteousness sincerely, must be considered saintly because of his determination to change. Isn't that profound? Not because of perfection, but because of sincere direction. So when you look back on your past, don't stare at it like a mirror reflecting who you are. Look at it like a map showing where you've been and how far you've come. There's a big difference between guilt and growth. Guilt is a weight, growth is a wing. You get to decide which one you live with. Let me be absolutely clear. You are not your worst moment. You are not the lie you told, the person you hurt, the opportunity you wasted. Those things happened. Yes. Acknowledge them, take responsibility, but also remind yourself they are chapters, not your entire story. Your job is not to stay stuck in the pain, but to transform it into wisdom. To become the kind of person who can look someone in the eye and say, "Yes, I fell, but I didn't stay down." And remember, there is someone in your life, maybe a child, a friend, a sibling, who is watching you, not to see if you're perfect, but to see if you're resilient. What your healing gives others permission to heal. Your growth inspires them to try again. You don't just carry your own potential, you carry the seed of hope for others. So don't let your past convince you that you're beyond redemption. Let it remind you of your power to evolve. Step away from shame and step into responsibility. Separate your worth from your wounds because you are not what you did. You are what you decide to do. Now, let's talk about something that often gets misunderstood: struggle. You see, we live in a time where comfort is not just valued, it's worshipped. We're conditioned to believe that ease is success, that peace means the absence of pressure, and that if life feels hard, something must be wrong. But that's not true. That's not even close to the truth. In fact, it's in the tension, the friction, and the moments when things fall apart that we often experience the most meaningful transformation. When you go to the gym and lift weights, you're tearing your muscle fibers. That's the only way they grow stronger. The discomfort is not a sign of damage, it's a sign of development. The same principle applies when you encounter struggle, whether it's failure, rejection, heartbreak, or loss. There's something deeply human and deeply sacred happening beneath the surface. Something is being broken, yes, but something is also being born. You can become wise without first being naive. You can't become strong without first feeling weak. You can't learn how to heal others if you haven't first learned how to heal yourself. Struggle isn't a detour from the path. It plumage the path. It's not just something that happens to you. It's something that shapes you, but only if you choose to engage with it consciously. Here's the problem: most of us try to avoid the discomfort. We numb it, distract ourselves, blame others, or give up. But when you do that, you rob yourself of the very thing that was sent to refine you. A mistake, when faced head on, can teach you more than 100 motivational videos ever could. A failure, when processed deeply, can lead to insights you never would have reached through success alone. That's the gift of struggle. It contains wisdom that's tailor-made for you. And that's where we begin to see mistakes not as permanent stains on our life story, but as stepping stones towards something. Every time life breaks you open, it's giving you a chance to expand. Not just to grow in knowledge, but to grow in empathy, in patience, in strength of character. Think of the lotus. It doesn't grow in clean water. It rises from the mud. It thrives in the exact environment that would seem least conducive to beauty. But it doesn't just survive, it blossoms. That's not accidental. That's a metaphor for the human soul. The environments you think are too painful, too dark, too full of regret, those might be the very places your growth is meant to begin. So why do we resist it so much? Because struggle doesn't feel good in the moment. It feels like chaos, like confusion. It's messy and unpredictable, but that's exactly why it works. Because it humbles you, it strips away your illusions, it forces you to confront your weaknesses with honesty. And then, when you least expect it, it reveals your strength. Sometimes we say, "I don't know how I'm going to get through this." And that's okay. You don't have to know, but you do have to believe that the struggle isn't wasted. There's a reason it's happening. There's something inside you that needs to be awakened. And that awakening can only come through pressure. Diamonds, after all, are made under pressure. So the question isn't how do I avoid struggle? The question is, what is this struggle trying to teach me? If you can begin to reframe your difficulties in this way, you won't just endure them, you'll extract the lesson from them. And that lesson becomes the stone under your foot, lifting you higher. The truth is, growth rarely happens in comfort. Think back to the times you changed the most, not just on the surface, but internally. It probably wasn't during your most relaxed or joyful periods. It was when life pushed you, when you were forced to dig deep, when your plans fell apart and you had to build new ones from the rubble. Those are the moments that build your foundation. And the beautiful part is, once you've walked through that fire, you can help others through theirs. You're no longer speaking from theory, you're speaking from experience. That's how compassion is born, not from always being right, but from having been wrong and finding your way through it. That's how leadership is formed, not by avoiding pain, but by learning how to walk through it with purpose. So don't run from struggle. Let it speak, let it shape you, let it show you the parts of yourself you haven't yet discovered. Let your mistakes become conversations with life, a dialogue that says, I'm still here, I'm still learning, and I will rise. Because struggle is not your enemy, it is your sculptor. And in its hands, you are becoming something far more beautiful than you ever imagined. One of the most empowering realizations in life is this: which your past does not define your future, your perspective does. No matter how many mistakes you've made, no matter how many wrong turns or poor choices you carry in your memory, it is not the memory itself that holds you back, it's your relationship with that memory. It's the lens through which you view it. Most people don't suffer because of what happened. They suffer because of how they interpret what happened. They replay the moment again and again, assigning it meanings like, I'm unworthy, I'll never succeed, or I always mess things up. But these are not facts, these are stories, narratives we attach to our experiences. And the danger of unchecked narratives is that they can quietly dictate the direction of your life, not because they are true, but because you've believed them long enough for them to become your inner compass. You see, your mind is like a fertile field. Whatever seed you plant, whether it's hope or despair, faith or fear, it will grow. If you plant the thought, my past makes me a failure, that idea will send roots deep into your self-image. Every time you try something new, it will whisper in your ear, you're not good enough. And unless you challenge that voice, it becomes your reality. But you can change the narrative. You can reframe the past in a way that builds you, not breaks you. This doesn't mean denying what happened. It means choosing to see it through a wiser, more constructive lens. Instead of saying, I failed, try saying, I learned. Instead of, I lost time, say, I gained clarity. Instead of, I was broken, say, I was being rebuilt. This isn't just positive thinking, it's powerful thinking, it's strategic. It's the psychology of transformation. Perspective is everything. Two people can go through the same storm. One comes out bitter, the other comes out stronger. The storm didn't decide their outcome, their interpretation of the storm did. And you have the same power. You can choose to look at your past as a burden. Let me leave you with this. Imagine looking back on your life years from now, not with bitterness, not with shame, but with gratitude. Gratitude that you had the courage to shift your perspective. Gratitude that you saw your pain not as a sentence, but as a starting point. Gratitude that you used the very stones meant to bury you as steps toward your becoming. Because your past is not your prison, it is your proving ground. And when you change how you see it, you change what it means. Forever